Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Dave, back on the 1973 Honda TL125 Trials bike. Last video I shot, I was assembling the front wheel. I had disassembled it, cleaned all the spokes, the hub, and painted the rim. I laced it all up in the last video, and I didn't have a truing stand at the time, so I just kind of left the video at that. Now I've got the triple tree and the forks installed on the bike, so now I can put the rim in here, and we can use the motorcycle as the truing stand. And this wheel is just the way I left it. Spokes are all loose, wheel is nowhere near straight, and it's time now to tighten everything up and get this thing perfectly straight. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is, some of these spokes have a little bit of tension, others are completely loose with no tension whatsoever. I'm just going to go around to each nipple out here with a flat bladed screwdriver and just take up all of the slack on any of these spokes that are loose at all, and just get all of them with just a little bit of tension on them, and then we'll see where we are at that point. So I'm just going to go around the whole thing. Like, this spoke has got play in it, so I'm just going to give this a couple of spins until right there the slack is gone. So I'm going to start at the valve stem hole, and I'm going to go all the way around and just take up any slack, and then we'll give it a good spin and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I went around the whole rim and just tightened up any spokes that were rattling loose. So they're all loose, but none of them are rattling loose. So here's my starting point. Let's give this thing a spin and see what it looks like. Okay, so we do have some side to side that we're going to correct eventually. Before I even address that, I want to see if we have any, what I would consider a hop. You know, if the rim is going up and down with each rotation. I think it's easier to fix a hop when the spokes are loose than once it's all tight. So I'm going to address any kind of a hop first, and then I'll look more closely at the side to side. And so I put a little tie wrap up here. Let's get a closer look at this tie wrap. I mean, the hop looks pretty good. It's pretty close. I almost don't have to do anything with it. But let me show you a closer look at it. Alright, let's take a close look at the hop, if there is any, on this rim. So I've got the rim, I've got this little pointer coming off of the fork. And I'm just looking at this gap, and I'm going to spin the rim. Does this gap grow huge? Does the rim come up and touch this pointer, or does it give me kind of a consistent distance? So it's not coming up, it's not touching this pointer, it's not pulling away from the pointer at all. It looks like there is no hop on this rim, so I don't have to adjust that. Awesome. And I think that may have had something to do with the little tool that I used to tighten these spokes up in the first place. My whole idea with that tool was to get all these spokes the same length. But let me show you what I would do if I found a lot of run out or wobble or hop in this rim. Here's how I would address it. Okay, let's say this rim did have some hop where the hub wasn't completely centered in the rim, and as you spun it, the rim would kind of come up, touch the pointer on one part, and then there'd be a big gap on the other half of the rim. So if I spun it, it touched here, and then there was a big gap here. What I would do is I would find the highest point where it's actually touching, get right in the middle of where it's touching. If it started touching here, and it stopped touching there, and we get right into the middle of where it was touching, and then I just put a piece of tape on like the 3 and 9 o'clock of the wheel. And so now if the rim is up and touching it, we want to tighten all the spokes on this half of the rim, maybe a quarter of a turn, and then go over here and loosen all the spokes on this half of the rim, maybe a quarter of a turn. Give it a spin, see how it goes. Just find the high point of the rim. You're going to tighten the rims on this side, and then loosen the rim, the spokes on this side. And just do that until you get rid of the hop. It may take a couple times, and just quarter turn, eighth of a turn on each spoke. And you can do that 3 or 4 times and you will get rid of that hop. Alright, so the hop is not a problem with this wheel. It's just now the side to side that I need to correct, and we've got quite a bit of side to side here. I need to find out where the center is. This rim, I want the rim to be straight, but I want it to be straight in the center of the forks. I don't want it to be straight, over this side. So I want to find what part of this fork is in the dead center and then true it to that, which I've done. I've marked it with a piece of tape. There's my tape. So if I bring my tape here, and I'm just basically going to measure this gap and this gap until they're the same. And I found them to be the same in this spot. I'm just using a micrometer, so there's that gap. And then there's that gap. They're about the same. So I know this rim and this spot on the rim is in the middle of the forks. I've set my pointer up so that it's just off of the rim. And I'm going to true the whole thing till I have that gap consistent all the way around the rim. Over here I've got a big huge gap. So I'm going to need to pull the rim closer to the marker. And actually here it's actually touching the marker. So now I need to pull the rim away from the marker until the whole thing has a nice consistent gap just like that. Hopefully that makes sense. Alright, so the adjustments that I'm going to be making on this rim are just like quarter turns. All these spokes are really loose right now. And if I just true it from here and get it perfectly straight, and some of these spokes are still loose, it's not going to be very strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around the entire rim and put a half a turn on every single spoke. And then we'll come back and we'll look at it. And then these spokes will be tighter. I want these spokes to be relatively tight before I do the actual final tweaking. Because if I tweak it right now, let's say I make an adjustment on 8 or 10 spokes and it's perfect, I still got a bunch of loose spokes everywhere. So if I give everything a half a turn, it should stay pretty much where it is, just everything a little bit tighter. And I might have to go around and do that, a couple times. But I want these spokes to be relatively tight before I go to finish getting them perfectly straight. So I'm just going to go around the whole thing. I'm going to start at the valve stem hole and give everything a 1/2 turn tightening. Okay, that's around the whole rim. And so now they're already a lot tighter. They're still not super tight, but they're a lot tighter. Let me see what this rim actually looks like now. Okay, it's no longer even hitting on one side, but we've got half of the rim. This whole half of the rim is way too far left. So I'm going to go around the whole thing one more time with a quarter turn. Starting at the valve stem. Now I'm going to go around just to tighten them up a bit more. That half turn really tightened everything up pretty good. So another quarter turn. Okay, and that was an additional quarter turn. Now these spokes are quite a bit tighter, most of them. So let's give this thing a spin and see what it looks like. So there's the center. I mean, that's where I want to true it, to this spot right here. And so now I'm going to start actually truing things. So over here, that's where we want to be. And over here, that whole gap, I'm going to make some more marks with some tape. So we're almost back to where we want to be here. But then it goes way out of whack until we get back to here again. So between this tape and this tape, the rim needs to go that way. So what I'm going to do is give a quarter turn on the spokes that are coming onto this right side flange, pulling it over, and maybe loosen the spokes that are coming to this side and allowing it to go over. So I want the rim to go this way. So I'm going to tighten these spokes and loosen these spokes. I'm going to start by tightening the spokes. And I'm going to get right in the middle, right between these two pieces of tape. And this is where I'm going to start. Right here, I'm just going to tighten this one, this one, this one, this one, all the spokes that are pulling it, the rim in that direction. And then I'm going to loosen all the spokes coming from this side. And I'm just going to go like a quarter turn, and then we can go check. Alright, and we'll give it a spin. Okay, this is the ideal gap. And so we still got quite a gap in between. So a lot of the spokes I was tightening to pull it that way were getting pretty tight. So now I'm just going to go over to the spokes on this side and loosen them a little bit and see if that will help the wheel go that way. Loosen, 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 loosen. All right, can you see that? Can you see this gap here? It's getting a lot better already. So here's the gap I want to maintain. And it does go away from the rim, not quite as much and not quite as far. So right about here, I want this rim to go in that direction. So I'm going to tighten a couple of these spokes and loosen a couple of these spokes. If the spokes I want to loosen are super tight, that's good. And if the spokes I want to tighten are super tight already, then I will loosen the other side. Now these wheels just want to turn. All right, we're already getting a lot better. So I want to continue doing this. Again, here's my original center. Right in this section right here, I want to pull it further that way. So I'm going to loosen the spokes that were pulling it over here. Okay, that one's kind of loose. So I'm going to tighten the spokes on either side of it. Because I don't want a bunch of super tight ones and a bunch of super loose ones. Well, that's already looking very good. Okay, here it's kind of close to the rim, so I want to pull the rim towards me. So I'll tighten those three and then loosen up the three that are going the other side. And the fourth one. Okay, we're getting there. I need to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Alright, let's get you in a little tighter angle here, see if you can see. Get back to my, here's the gap that I like, that I want to maintain. And it's looking pretty consistent, although right in this area here it gets a little close. So between here and there it goes back. So in between these two pieces of tape, it's just getting just a little close to that marker, not by much, but if I can pull the rim, see there's a nice gap there. It gets tight, it gets tight, it gets tight, and then there's a nice gap there. So if I get right in between these two pieces of tape I just put on there, and now this is such a small, I'm just trying to get such a small movement that I might just go like a 1/16 of an inch trying to pull it towards me. So all the spokes on this side, we just give them a little tweak just like that. 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then going the other way, same thing. Little tweak. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just, 1/16 of an inch of a twist. Now let's look at it again. A little tight right there. And I like to adjust more than, I like to adjust 4 or 5 or 6, even 7 spokes. I don't want to make all of my adjustments on one spoke. You can't try to straighten the rim up by cranking a single spoke. You got to spread the load out a little bit. 6 or 7 spokes pulling this way keeps the rim nice and straight. A little tight right here. Come on. Can you see that mark? That's looking pretty darn good. I wish I could get this thing to actually touch. Can I get it to touch the rim? Get that marker to almost touch the rim and then see if it touches it anywhere. There's the gap that's dead center of the forks. Hopefully you can see that. Can you see that gap? It's looking pretty darn good. It's almost touching right there. You see how much I'm turning these spokes? These nipples rather, just tweaking them a little bit. Looks close right there. Tighten 3 in that one little spot. That looks pretty good to me. Again, this is a dirt bike. This is not a Jigster 600 or 1100 where you're going to be going 160 down the highway. This is just a dirt bike. And I really think that that is good enough. Can you see that gap? Try to put something behind. Let me see if you can appreciate how close this is. That to me is good enough. That looks damn good. And all these spokes now are tight. I think we're all set here. So I know the rim is centered between the forks because I measured this gap here. I know it's centered. And now I've got this pointer that's like 10,000ths of an inch away from it, and it never touches it. And it never goes to 20 or 30 thousandths of an inch. I think that's good. And that wasn't that hard, and that wasn't that bad. I mean, granted, the tire's off, and I'm able to adjust the spokes with a screwdriver. Now, after taking it out a few times, I might check these wheels again, and then with a spoke wrench, once it's got tires on it, you can use a spoke wrench and just make little tweaks and adjustments. But this looks good. I'm calling that done. And there you have it. Spokes are tight, rim is straight and centered. Beautiful. There you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. If so, great. Consider subscribing to the channel for more. And until next time, thanks for watching.